Hey, what's up guys, it's TechSummer talking to you here, and in today's video I've got something special for you. In today's video I will pick up what is, in my opinion, the worst MacBook ever. The worst MacBook launched by Apple ever. This is the 2016 MacBook Pro, 13-inch with no touch bar. This was the first generation where Apple introduced the Magic Keyboard, where Apple introduced this new design for the 2016 MacBook Pro generation, the touch bar. This at the time was extremely expensive. It was more expensive than the older 13-inch from 2015. It didn't have a touch bar. It did have the horrible Magic Keyboard. It did have those plagging problems on the display port and display cable. It did have the problems on Magic Keyboard also, and it still had the same old generation Intel i5. So I think this is a 5th or 6th generation Intel i5. It's really bad. It's really slow. It's the same processor present on the 2015 version. These MacBook Pros, in my opinion, were the worst computers ever made by Apple. And so in today's video, what I decided to do was something very interesting. In today's video, I decided to compare this MacBook Pro, a very old Intel machine MacBook Pro, which resembles the worst times for Intel on a Mac, to my M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro. This is the best Apple Silicon ever on a laptop, and in my opinion, it's the best Apple Mac ever, especially a laptop. So what can you expect? The differences between the computer, how big was the evolution between these two? This is more of an entertaining video, so I hope I can entertain you guys. So this is not a real comparison because no one wants to compare a very bad computer with a very good computer. Like, of course, they will be different. This computer will be much faster, better display. Everything will be way better on this computer, although it's way more expensive. No, in today's video, I just want to show you how in about 6 years, Apple changed the landscape on the MacBook lineup. Very much. And keep in mind, that's a 2021 MacBook Pro. So the difference between these two are actually 5 years. So in 5 years, Apple changed a lot. And in today's video, I want to show you what are the differences between the worst MacBook Pro ever and the best MacBook Pro ever. So do not forget to leave a like if you enjoy these types of contents, subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with all my videos, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of those new videos when they come out. So no further ado, let it be carnage. So this is a 2016 MacBook Pro. This is the 13-inch computer, that's a 16-inch computer. The design on these computers are actually one of the smallest differences there are. Yes, I know, these are two different designs, but the other categories are like ridiculously different. The difference between this computer, design, display, performance, like everything, GPU power, like keyboard reliability, everything here is like way worse than there. And there's only like 5 years of evolution. Like, it's just ridiculous. If you think about 5 years of evolution, it's like iPhone 10 to iPhone 14. Now it's this computer to that computer. So think about it. How good is Apple Silicon? Because Intel machines, this was the pinnacle of the worst Intel chips on a MacBook Pro. In this 2016 MacBook Pro, Intel chips thermally throttle like crazy on these computers. This is a MacBook Pro, and it still thermally throttles today. It's terrible performance. This computer had very big problems on the keyboard, on the display. I was plagued by those problems too. I had to take this Apple computer to Apple so they could replace my whole computer. They took out the display, the battery, the keyboard. Everything else was not good. Like, it was faulted everywhere. This is a defective device from its core, and it's not Apple's fault. It's Intel's fault. So let's understand first why this is the worst computer ever, in my opinion, from the MacBook lineup. This computer was introduced in 2016, and it was the first time that Apple introduced the USB-C ports. So as you can see here, this computer has 2 USB-C ports, and these are 2 total 3 ports. These are actually very good I/O, but that's it. They removed all of other ports. So it was the first time that people were shocked that Apple removed all of their I/O, and so they were not that happy. But then, of course, Apple did way more than that. They shrunk the design very much. They make it way thinner and sharper in the hands. This is a new design language for Apple until 2020. So you gotta think that this design language is still present today on the M1 MacBook Pros and the M2 MacBook Pros 13-inch. This design language, in my opinion, is not that bad. It's actually very good. But you have to keep in mind that this computer came out in 2016 and it had Intel inside, not Apple Silicon. So a very thin and very thermally constrained design with Intel inside, the worst Intel chips in terms of power to efficiency, it doesn't go well. This computer thermally throttles just browsing through the web, which is really, really bad. Even watching YouTube videos it's a terrible experience. The fans is blowing out. So trust me when I say to you, this, in my opinion, is the worst value MacBook Pro ever and the worst MacBook Pro ever. Right now, they are selling very cheap. This particular model, the 13-inch 2016 MacBook Pro, it was only launched for about 6 months and it had like no touch bar. The main thing about this generation MacBook Pros was the touch bar, and this one came to replace the 13-inch older generation, but still, that's a way better computer. It had the same chip, the same like GPU, power integrated GPUs. Like everything on this computer it's like an old generation, but on a new design, which is more thermally constrained than the older design. So the performance was worse. Like there's no advantages to this computer, like none. It's more of a downgrade than an upgrade. It's not even a side grade from the 2015s. No, it's a downgrade. So it's really terrible. At the first when I got this computer, I was really, really happy. Of course, your fathers give you a MacBook Pro. I mean, I still love them for that. I'm truly grateful for them to give me this computer. It's not their fault. They didn't know. This computer at the time, it was good. At the first 2 years, okay, I did not do much. Played some games like Minecraft. I could do it. Not that fast and not that reliably, but I could do it. But then the performance started going downhill very, very fast. I started editing videos, editing photos, and I couldn't do it. It got that bad to the point that when I got my iPad Pro in 2018, I started editing videos on the 2018 iPad Pro. Then went from iMovie to Lumen Fusion, and until 2021, when I first got my M1 Max MacBook Pro 16-inch, I edit videos on my 2018 iPad Pro. For you to have an idea, I had this MacBook all along, but it was so bad, I did not use it for much. So, yeah, this MacBook Pro was terrible, terrible, terrible. And that's why now you understand why I'm calling it the worst MacBook Pro ever. Not even talking about the fact that this computer broke, simply broke. The display just broke from using it, like from opening and closing the computer. The display just broke. And why? Well, the design was flawed. The display connector was caught by just a simple use. Like when you are using and opening and closing the machine like this, for example, doing this, the machine was cutting the cable. So after a few, I would say, years of use, the display cable was cut down and the display was completely rendered and useless. So the computer killed itself just by opening it up. So the computer was killing itself during time. It was like a time bomb. Then the keyboard was completely unreliable. I had issues twice. I replaced my keyboard once, and then my second keyboard, which is this one, still has problems. This computer has the Butterfly keyboard. The Butterfly keyboard on this computer is terrible, sucks. I replaced it once. I have my second Butterfly keyboard now, and it still had problems. So this Butterfly keyboard sucks. This is the first generation, the worst one. Of course, the latest generation, the 2020 version, or the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, that one is much, much better. But this one still sucks. Like, it's really, really terrible. But this one is really, really terrible. Like, I had problems twice. I had to replace this once, and now I kind of forgot about it. Like, I do not use this computer. It's on a drawer at home. I do not use it. That's why this is the worst computer ever. Like, reliability problems. The display was terrible. Completely destroyed after a few years. The keyboard was destroyed after a few months of use. A little bit of crumbling of food. Completely gone, your keyboard. This computer was riddled with controversy. And on top of that, the performance was completely horrible. It was bad. That's why this is the worst Apple computer, MacBook, in my opinion, ever. So, now, what is the jump between this computer and the best computer ever, the M1 Max MacBook Pro 16-inch? I have so much videos explaining why this is, in my opinion, the best Apple laptop ever. I will not talk about that in this video, not to tire you out, but the M1 Max MacBook Pro still has a very superior display, keyboard, mouse, trackpad, everything else is amazing when compared to this one. So let's start comparing and see what are the differences, what were the jump between 2016 and the 2021 versions of the MacBook Pros. So let's start with the design. This computer has a very, very sharp design. It's like the old MacBook design. You can still find it on the M1 and M2 MacBook Pro 13-inch. This design is not bad. The only thing that I don't really like about it is that it cuts into your hands. One thing that is good about it is the fact that it's very light and it occupies less volume than the newer designs. Other than that, I don't think that this is the future. I think that Apple will kill this design in the near future, with the last surviving being the M2 and the M1 MacBook Pros 13-inch. While the new M1 Max MacBook Pros, this one that I have right here, features the design of the future for Apple. It features a curved back and a flat sides. So when you are holding it, it's not this sharp, it's curved, it's fillet, it has a fillet, but if you are holding it, it feels very comfortable. But if you are looking at it, it's flat. So in my opinion, it's a better design, it's more comfortable. Although it's heavier and bulkier, I think it has so many advantages above this design in terms of comfort and portability, that I think that at the end of the day, doesn't matter the extra heftiness. One thing though that this design provides that this one doesn't, it's extra thermal capabilities. So you can have more thermal hungry chips and GPUs, while this design couldn't. So at the end of the day, that design is just superior in every single way. Yes, I could wish that this design would be improved on with Apple Silicon, but Apple is doing that with the M1 and M2 MacBook Pros 13-inch, so I don't really care. That design though, I think it's the future and I want to see it on an iPhone. So if you are interested in that, I have a video on the iPhone biggest leaks and changes coming next year, the iPhone 15, titanium, a redesign, USB-C, all of that is going to be on that video, so check it out on my channel. But that's it, that's the design. I think that design is so much better, and in terms of 5 years of evolution, only on 2021 that Apple decided to go for that design. The display is actually where you will notice one of the most differences apart from performance. This computer features a 13-inch display. I mean, right now Apple evolved it to a 14-inch display. This display is terrible. At that time, we had a 13-inch and a 15-inch option. The 15-inch, it didn't have this option of no touch bar, so I will focus on the 13-inch. The 13-inch laptop, it's small. These bezels are big, the display is small. It's still an IPS P3 color gamut display, still Retina display. That one, it's a ProMotion capable display. This one isn't. This one is small, it's not as good as that one. That's a mini LED display. So the improvements, it's like a 3-4 fold. It's much better, much brighter, much more rich. The contrast is much better. The blacks are real blacks, while these one aren't. These are like a normal IPS panel. Of course, you can have a very good IPS panel, and in fact, this is a very good display. The only difference between these two displays and the big one is the fact that this display kills itself. It's a suicide display, while that one, it's a good display, perfectly fine display that doesn't have any problems with the display port. So yeah, this design is completely flawed and kills the display after a few years of use, while that one is perfect. And on top of that, this display is so much better in every single category. ProMotion 120Hz capable, refresh rate is being different, like you can go up to 120, 60, 30, so much better. And of course, you can also program this display to have amazing color profiles. It still has mini LEDs, so HDR support is incredible. It's, I think, 1600 nits capable, while this one is only 500 or 400. The display comparison is just nuts, and the evolution between that display and this display is huge, trust me. Then let's go to the most fun part, which is kind of weird because the I/O on this computer has changed a lot. The I/O on this computer is more minimal than the I/O on that computer, although these are two different generations, and that generation is the newer one. Apple went back on their word with this generation, and they introduced, finally, again, HDMI and SD card slot support, together with, of course, one more Thunderbolt 4 port, but that comes with the new generation being bigger, the 16-inch version, while the smaller 14-inch computer compared to the 15-inch of this generation, or the 6-inch compared to the 15-inch of this generation, this one had one more port because it had two Thunderbolt 3 ports on the left and two Thunderbolt 4 ports on the right. But at the end of the day, why? Like, you don't have HDMI, you don't have MagSafe, you don't have SD card slot, so you need to put more adapters on those Thunderbolt 3 ports, which will occupy them and you will lose them. This one, you have 3 plus the rest. So at the end of the day, you actually have more available Thunderbolt 4 ports than you have on the 15 and 13-inch version with touch bar here. But this version, the worst version ever, doesn't. Only has 2. And only having 2 USB-Cs, it's a struggle. Trust me, 1 USB-C is bad. 2 USB-Cs is not that bad, but it's bad also. Why? Because like, you have to charge it, you have to connect one accessory, boom, you're done. No more ports. That's it. You only connect one accessory, one display, one accessory, one power cable, one display. And if you have a Thunderbolt display, you can connect one display, which powers your display and computer, and then one accessory. If you have a USB-C hub, it's easier, you can connect more things, but at the end of the day, they are slower. So at the end of the day, you have to sacrifice a lot only having 2 ports. One specific thing that I really don't enjoy on this computer is the fact that you only have ports on one side. So you can only charge it via the left side, not the right side, which is a huge inconvenience when you are doing work on a library, coffee shop, when you have only the outlet on the right and you have to charge it on the left and the cable is completely twisted. It's not the best scenario. Trust me, this computer is much better if you have one here, one on the right. So even the port issue, the I/O, it's terrible on this computer, and it has been big of a jump. Apple has admitted their mistakes at the end of the day. They corrected, and that's what matters. So enjoy your ports. We won. Thank you, Apple, for that. Let's talk about keyboards, trackpads, and webcams. The keyboard, this one is a Battlefield keyboard. It's terrible, sounds terrible, it's very loud, it's not that reliable, while that one has a new generation Magic keyboard. So it's more like Apple again admitting their mistakes with this generation, and in 5 years they actually came back to the Magic keyboard, introduced it. It's amazing, I love it so much. It's so much better than the Battlefield keyboard. Trust me, at the end of the day you will be fine using a Magic keyboard. Battlefield keyboard was good for some people, it's thinner, so much more unreliable than the Magic keyboard. I really love typing on this Magic keyboard. It's so comfortable. The key travel is bigger, better. The keys are bigger, better, more stable. I really love it, that keyboard. This one is really unreliable. Like sometimes you are writing and the keyboard doesn't connect one word or even one key. The space gets stuck very often. The caps lock doesn't work like 80% of the time. The shift button is also broken. So this keyboard sucks. Like, thank you, Apple, for changing your mind, going back, admitting your mistakes, and finally replacing the Battlefield keyboard with the new generation Magic keyboard. Of course, that keyboard also has a different input to unlock your computer. It has Touch ID. This computer did not have Touch ID, I think, until 2018. That's the year they introduced I think it was 2018 or even 2016, I don't remember, but this version, the specific version, the cheaper version, the touch bar had Touch ID from the beginning. That's right. But this computer does not have Touch ID because it doesn't have the touch bar. So, God, the only thing good about this generation was the touch bar. And even that, this computer is not good at. Did not have it, so did not have Touch ID. So, at the end of the day, the only thing good about the 2016 generation was touch bar, and this computer doesn't have it. So, this is really the worst MacBook Pro ever. The webcam here is really that bad. This is a 720p webcam. It's terrible. Trust me. Here's the comparison between the 1080p from the M1 Max and the 720p from this computer. Oh, don't forget also that that computer has a neural engine that can improve the image much more. Hey guys, this is Tech Sumer here, and this is vlogger style on the M1 Max MacBook Pro. This is my camera test, and what you think? This is also the microphone test. Let me know in the comments below how I look. I think I look pretty great. Looking at and testing out, I think that's pretty good. This is a 1080p camera, but it looks pretty great, and for zoom calls it looks perfect. In my opinion, a little bit more crisp than the center stage camera on the studio display. But let me know in the comments below how it looks and how it sounds, the microphones. This is a camera test and microphone test for the 2016 MacBook Pro. Then of course the speakers here are not that bad for a MacBook, or at least for a laptop, but those speakers are much better. So you can take a listen and see what's the difference between 5 years of evolution from a crappy Intel MacBook Pro from 2016 and the best MacBook Pro ever. speakers are much fuller, much louder, and with a lot less noise. Do not take me wrong. These speakers are still incredible for today's market, today's Windows computers. But when in comparison to the newer generation MacBook Pros, they stay behind. Okay, let's end up this comparison talking about the elephant in the room, the performance. The performance on this computer is terrible. It's really terrible. I cannot describe how bad it is. It thermally throttles just by opening the web, thermally throttles just by watching YouTube videos. You cannot even use Chrome. If I try to edit videos here, 1080p upwards, it takes me hours to export, hours to upload. This is a very bad experience. I do not advise you to buy this computer, even used today. It's really a bad deal. You cannot find it in a good deal on eBay. It's really the worst MacBook Pro ever. The performance is from 2013, 2014 on a 2016 chassis, which is not ready to accumulate it. So the 2013 chips are not efficiency enough to be used on this chassis. Still, Apple put it there because they had no other choice. Intel failed Apple. That's why I think ultimately this is not Apple's fault, because Intel failed Apple to deliver. So Apple was expecting a very power efficient chip that Apple was promised by Intel, but then Intel delivered the same generation from the older computers, and they were like, what are you doing? This is the same thing. They're like, oh, sorry, I don't have any more. And Apple had to use it, and then it was a very weird problem, and it was very, very bad. This computer thermally throttles until 2019, I think. So really, this is very bad. The performance is really terrible. You can see on Geekbench here, the results are very, very different. The computer, 5 years, Apple Silicon just completely destroyed it. But keep in mind, even from 2019, from the 16th generation, the difference is huge. So until 16 to 19, the difference on the computers was big, but not that big. And the power efficiency was about the same. While the jump from 2019 to 2021 on 2 years Apple did is amazing, is incredible, and I really love the Apple Silicon transition. Thank God Apple transitioned to their chips. The Intel chips were no more on the Mac. It really created so much problems, but still, it's an Intel machine. How bad could it be? Well, it doesn't open reliably Safari tabs. It doesn't open anything really. It's really slow. You cannot play games. Right now, it's only a web browsing machine and document doing. And so, to test out this theory, I'm gonna show you a test where I open all of the apps that I had on my app drawer on macOS on the two computers. As you can see, the Intel machine, takes so long to open all the apps. I will put a timer on the screen for you to realize, but I think it was around 1 minute to open all of the apps. Then, after that, I will try to close them very, very fast with the Command Q button. But until then, let's just wait until it finishes opening all the apps, shall we? So, let's begin quitting all of the apps. And here, the task is a little bit faster. As you can see, I'm quitting very fast, but still, some of the apps had some prompts which I had to click on continue to continue, but still, very fast quitting them, very slow to open them, while the next computer will surprise you. So, let's start now with the Apple Silicon machine. As you know, they are more bursty than the current Intel machines. So, as you can see, it's extremely fast opening all the apps, and if you haven't noticed, all of these apps, they are almost double the apps that I had on the older app drawer. So, as you can see, it's ridiculous the amount of time it spends opening all, double the apps that the Intel machine had. So it's just ridiculous. And then when you start quitting them, it's also extremely fast. I had some problems with some prompts, but still, this was extremely fast, and the most important part of the test was done. So as you can see, Intel is very slow when compared to the bursty Apple Silicon cores and the ARM technology. So yeah, I think that this computer really has its space on the trash, because the performance is really that bad. Thermally performance is bad. It thermally throttles a lot, gets very hot, the fans turn very high. It's not that great of experience. And if again you want to do more benchmarks, you can do Cinebench, which is a more load on the machine during more time. And here again, the MacBook Pro performs even better. So there's no excuse for Apple Silicon. Now it's way more bursty and powerful, but even on longer loads, it's better. So you can say, oh, forget about that. Intel is so much better on sustained loads, because the MacBook is just good on ARM stuff, simple stuff, quick bursts. But no, this is the worst MacBook Pro ever for a comparison, and the jump from 5 years is huge. The performance difference is noticeable in every single category, And even so, this machine being 6 years old or 5 years old, it's terrible. The performance is terrible. It's not excusable. Even in 2016, the performance is terrible. So this is why this is the worst MacBook Pro ever. And that's why I don't want to see Intel ever again putting chips on a Mac. Apple now doesn't need to worry about other manufacturers. They can design and make their designs towards their chips. And that was the problem at the time. At the time, they had to make their designs and expect other manufacturers to deliver the chips. If they didn't, you end up with this device, a thermally constrained device, a thermally throttling device, the worst MacBook Pro ever, the most unreliable MacBook Pro ever, and in my opinion, the worst of the worst laptops ever. Do not buy this laptop. If you have one, consider getting rid of it and buy another one. The M1 MacBook Air is on sale right now for $800, $700. It's a way better deal than this one. Do not buy a used computer even if you find a good deal. This computer is terrible. Do not buy it. So, what are your thoughts on this computer? Let me know in the comments down below. And really, the differences between the 2016 MacBook Pro, the worst MacBook Pro ever in my opinion, and the best MacBook Pro ever, the 2021's MacBook Pros, are really, really big. I know this is not a fair comparison, but the objective here was not to try to help you out choosing between these two computers. It wasn't. It was to show you how big was the evolution between these two MacBooks in only 5 years. It's a big jump. It's a really big jump. So thank you, Apple, for improving, for listening for us. For example, the Magic Keyboard. Another example was, of course, the DisplayPort, the design, and of course, the I/O. So thank you, Apple, for listening. At the end of the day, you have a way better machine now. The 14-inch MacBook Pro, in my opinion, is the best value computer ever released. Then, of course, the M1 MacBook Air, which is right now for $800. It's a really, really that good deal. But what are your thoughts on these two computers? Let me know in the comments down below. And do you have or did you have a 2016 MacBook Pro with touch bar or with no touch bar? This exact model that I have right here. Did you have one? If you have one, let me know your experience down in the comments below, because I must truly admit, I think it's really, really terrible. And I think yours will be too. So don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. This video was very fun to make. Take a look back at my older computer. Take a look back at Apple's disastrous past from the MacBook lineup when they were using Intel. Everyone was thinking that the MacBook lineup was dead. Apple didn't care about the MacBook. They only cared about the iPad. Now the papers have reversed. Apple doesn't care about the iPad. It's all about the Mac. So at the end of the day, I think that Apple did the right thing. Improve the Mac, release the Apple Silicon transition. And I think that we are really, really, really lucky to have these new MacBook Pros. They are much better, much more competitive, and in my opinion, much, much cheaper. Because a cheap thing does not define by how much does it cost. But of course, it's valid. So that computer could be cheaper than the M1 Max MacBook Pro, almost half the price, but the performance was 200-300% worse. So at the end of the day, it was actually a very, very expensive computer. But that's all I got for you today. So do not forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. This has been Tech Smart talking to you here. Bye.